guys, it's Alexis, aka The Sloth Reader, and I'm here today to do another Top 5 Wednesday video. As usual, I will leave the host of Top 5 Wednesday, Thoughts on Tomes channel, linked down below, as well as the Goodreads group where we post all of the topics and links and such. This week's Top 5 Wednesday video is about our favorite underrated books, and I had a whole bunch to choose from that it was really hard to narrow this list down. But basically what I decided to do is to choose books that had under 10,000 Goodreads ratings, which is a really small amount considering when you look at books like City of Bones, which have like 600,000 ratings, or the Throne of Glass series, which have like the same amount. So when you look at these like really popular series, under 10,000 ratings is a really small number, and I think the lowest one on this book only has like 1,200 ratings, so they're incredibly underrated, especially because most of these are very highly rated. People really enjoyed them. I personally gave every single book on this list 4 stars or higher, and I just really love them, and I want everyone in the entire world to read them. So the first book I'm going to mention is a 2016 release that like I know a lot of people talked about, but like I don't think a lot of people read, which I'm hoping will really change because this is a book I genuinely think everyone should read because I do think it was really good, and that is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. And I know you've all probably heard of this book, but just not a lot of people have read it and like rave about it, which is a shame because this is such an important book. This book follows 3 main characters, Jack, PK, and Alex, and it's basically all of these characters are in high school and they're all kind of dealing with the subject of rape culture and kind of how it impacts their lives and the effect each of them kind of has on the view of rape culture in their small town. But it's also, Alex is an anti-hero, and it's a lot about her fighting off these uncontrollable anger problems that she has. It's a lot about, you know, judging women upon what they wear and all of this stuff, and it has so many important things it talks about that like it baffles me that like not everybody has read it yet. And if there's definitely some parts of this book that are very gritty, and it does talk a little bit about animal abuse and stuff, so if you can't stomach that, I do fully understand, but this book is so 100% worth the read. It's just magical. Next one I'm going to talk about is one that was on my 2016 favorites list. It's a book that I talk about a lot on my channel, but I think it only has like less than 2,000 reviews on Goodreads, which is not enough for me because I loved this book so much, and the fact that people haven't read it yet, like, what are you people doing? Just please go read it. It's so good. And that is Shallow Graves by Kelly Wallace. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I know I've talked about it a bunch before on my channel, but this is basically follows a young girl named Breezy who wakes up from a grave site one day and realizes she's been dead for the past year, and she basically goes on a cross-country journey to figure out if she died, why is she now alive, what's happening to her, why does she magically have the ability to kill murderers. And yeah, it's so good, and I loved the way it was written. The author goes a lot between past, present, and future of characters that the main character Breezy comes across, and I really liked that. I liked that we were getting to know a lot of information about incredibly minor characters that were only in there for like 3 chapters, but it felt like we were getting their whole lifetimes in just these little bits. And I loved the diversity in this book. Breezy is biracial and bisexual, and I absolutely love that. And I loved that this book also has a bit of information at the end of the book that's a lot about rape culture, and reading that part in the book just absolutely spoke to me, and I loved it. And this book is just so good, and this was Kelly Wallace's first book, and so I'm so excited, and I hope she writes another book soon because I think she has a lot of amazing things to say. The next book I'm going to mention is one that I've never heard anybody else talk about ever, but I love this book so much, and that is Blue Plate Special by Michelle de Quasny. And this basically follows 3 different women, each in a different time period, like the 60s, 70s, and 80s or something like that. And this story is a lot about the relationships between these women and their mothers. And it's a lot about each of them and the romances they have throughout their life, and about just, it's a lot about the relationship between mother and daughter. That's a huge, huge, huge aspect of this book, and how, like, the way that mothers treat their daughters affects how their daughters grow up, how their daughters affect their daughters, as like a huge part of this book. And it's so good, and it's super easy to read, and like some of the stories are told in verse. I think one particular, Desiree's are all told in verse. And it's just so good, and so many of the parts of this story are just, they'll get you right in the heart, and it's so good. And I think this is the one that only has like 1,200 ratings on Goodreads, which baffles me because it's just such an amazing book, and I highly, highly recommend it. The next one I'm going to mention is The Scourge by A.G. Hinley. I do not have a physical copy of this book. I read it on my Kindle, but I love this book. This is it's a zombie apocalypse book that follows the main character named Fennel, who is actually blind, and she is the water bearer for her village. There are two groups of people. There are the groundlings, people who live on the ground, and the lofties, people who live in the trees. Fennel is a groundling, and she's the water bearer, so she has to go out and get the water for both the lofties and the groundlings. When these zombie creatures come in, something about her blindness makes her immune to these creatures, and she is aided by a lofty boy named Perry, who basically acts as her eyes, and also basically protects her. He has a bow and arrow, and he shoots away zombies that get too close to her. And yeah, but this book is about so much more than that. It's about the relationship between the groundlings and the lofties, and it's about a lot of things about Fennel that she never knew about herself and her village, and it's about Perry and Fennel's relationship and their romance, and it's really good. It's a super fast read, and I think that A.G. Hinley, for, being someone who isn't blind, I think she does a very good job of writing Fennel. Fennel is not defenseless. She's incredibly strong. The character is really well written from the point of view of someone who isn't blind, so I have to commend A.G. Hinley for that. That I felt like Fennel's character is so well done, and her blindness is in no way made to be a weakness for her, and it's just really good, and I highly, highly recommend it. The final book I'm going to mention is my all-time favorite trilogy. It's a fantasy trilogy that has only like 8,000 Goodreads reviews, and that breaks my heart because I love this trilogy so much. It's the only book series I've ever reread, and I love it so, 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 so much, and that is the Hollow Kingdom trilogy by Claire B. Dunkel. This is a companion trilogy, so every book follows a different main character, but it's so good. The first book basically follows this girl who is introduced to the Goblin King, and he basically takes her away to marry her, and it's kind of about her resistance to this at first, and then her eventually coming to really love the goblins as, her own, and she kind of realizes that everything she's really ever thought about her life has been very different, and it's so good. And the second two books in the series, Close Kin and In the Coils of the Snake, are equally as good, and the romances are so swoon-worthy for them, and I love just all of the little bits about this book and how each book affects the later books in the series, and it's just so good, and it's my favorite trilogy, and yet nobody I know has even read it, and so it breaks my heart. And if I can just get like 10 other people on this planet to read this series, I will just be so over the moon about it. I just love it so much. Alright guys, so those were my 5 underrated recommendations for you guys. I hope you guys will check them out. They're just such good books. They're such good reads, and I enjoyed them all so immensely, and I think you guys will too. But you guys should let me know down below what's your favorite underrated book, or if there's an indie book you'd like to recommend to me. I will check it out, and I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye!